Part 83. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 823. Zhang Zizai. Suyuexi actually didn't expect him to choose such a great way. Originally, her disgust for him last time had disappeared. But this time, at such a moment, Zhang Zizai's performance also shocked her heart. Some people just don't say a word, but they can turn the tide. And some people are strong on the outside but weak on the inside. When danger comes, they tremble more than anyone else. In the God King Palace, Yan Qingqi is high above, and Zhang Zizai is a rat crossing the street. Under the real test of the God King battlefield, it is known who is brave and ambitious, and who is a weak shrimp who only dares to shout big swords. Suyuexi's eyes were red. She knew that Zhang Zizai's departure this time would definitely be dangerous. The ancient god must kill him to snatch his god-level totem weapon. Even so, he still had to buy time for himself to leave. She didn't expect him to be so great. For more than 10 years, perhaps for the first time, she felt so shocked and bitter in her heart. If she didn't come to the God King battlefield, she didn't know what real life was. In the days of the God King Palace, he lived a life of luxury. How could he see through the true human heart at the critical moment of life and death today? The two women were really moved. In fact, they really thought too much. Zhang Zizai just wanted to escape for his own life. He didn't want to stay here. Unexpectedly, he was targeted by the ancient god because the demon lord Cauldron was exposed. He really didn't achieve his great plan to lead the ancient god away. At this time, of course, it is better to escape for his own life. Perhaps, it is Yan Qingqi who really guessed his inner thoughts. He thought, maybe he just wanted to escape for himself, but seeing the two beauties were moved to a mess, he didn't dare to say it again. Don't waste time, hurry up and kill, otherwise it will only waste his sacrifice. Suyuexi was like a chicken blood. She burst out with fighting courage that she had never had before. Maybe she has never been so manic in her life. The changes in the past few days have changed her too much. Indeed, once the ancient god comes back, they have no chance of survival. Even Yan Qingqi prayed that Zhang Zizai could hold on for a while before dying, otherwise they would be in the same danger. Now is a glimmer of hope. Suyuexi didn't have time to take out her own god-level totem weapon just now. In fact, she also had it. At this time, she held the weapon and cooperated with the other 3 people to kill. Apart from the ancient god, this time the opponent is slightly weaker than the dozen people last time. Suyuexi just wants to break through. Zhang Zizai didn't know that they were already moved to tears. He was having a terrible headache now. The ancient god behind him was getting closer and closer. Why bother in vain? There is no point in doing this. Your baby is mine after all. If you are smart, I might be able to leave you a whole body. If you want to blame someone, blame you for letting this god-level totem weapon recognize its master. To snatch this kind of magic weapon, unless you take the initiative to cancel it and give it to me, I can only kill you, but the key is that you are not an ancient god and cannot cancel this recognition relationship, so you don't have much to live, young man. Zhang Zizai ignored his noise. If we are caught up, we will all be doomed. This is what it said to Qingfen Longke. Qingfen Longke was also afraid of death. Hearing this, it fled madly again like a chicken blood. The terrain ahead was more complicated, with high mountains and abysses. The storm of Qingfen Longke kept rolling some trees and sand and dust to hit behind it to block the sight and progress of the ancient god. It flew almost close to the ground, so that it could block more sight. Although he had the immortal talisman, he might not die, but if he fell into the hands of this ancient god, the immortal talisman might be taken away by him. If he knew that following Suyuexi was so unlucky, he would not come out. Originally, he wanted to see what it would take to become a god, but now his life is almost gone. Fortunately, Qingfen Longke was still desperate, allowing Zhang Zizhe to hold on. In this way, although he still did not come into contact with the crisis, at least Suyuexi and the others should have time to leave. Damn, if I die and they survive, wouldn't I become a hero who moved the entire God King Palace? The key is, I don't want to die. Who wants to be such a hero? Hurry up, he kept urging Qing Fenglongke, tiring the sparrow. He also kept throwing out the wild talismans he had stored. The wild talismans could create chaos. When the thick yellow smoke swept, countless thick smoke was produced. The ancient god would definitely be slightly affected when he plunged into the thick smoke. Go in and hide. At this time, Zhang Zizhe saw a deep abyss after a little distance. He hurriedly asked Qing Fenglongke to take him in. Anyway, he would try his best. He didn't expect that his god-level totem weapon would be so attractive to such an ancient god with no background. After entering the abyss, it was even darker everywhere. There seemed to be no movement of the ancient god behind him for the time being, but Zhang Zizhe did not relax. He still asked Qing Fenglongke to continue to go deeper. Anyway, he kept shuttling back and forth, and he didn't know how deep he plunged into the ground. This underground is so vast, it seems like something has eaten it all, Zhang Zizhe muttered. The movement of Qing Fenglongke still existed. At this time, the other party seemed to have lost him. Zhang Zizhe finally breathed a sigh of relief and let Qing Fenglongke move a little. He was going to find a place to bury himself, maybe he could avoid the pursuit of this ancient god. At this time, suddenly, countless red lanterns lit up in front of him, densely packed, and the number was almost in the millions. At this moment, Zhang Ziyu's eyes were almost blinded by the light. The red lanterns were right in front of him, endless, like an underground mountain. Before he had time to figure out what the hell this thing was, he heard laughter behind him. When he turned around, the ancient god appeared with a smile and said, "Do you think you can escape from my palm like this, ah?" His smile did not last long, because in the next moment, it turned into a scream or a sharp sword. When Zhang Zizhe turned around, he also saw countless red lanterns behind him. He looked around, and there were red lanterns everywhere, flashing cold and dim light. A closer look revealed that these red lanterns were the eyes of the soul-eating ants. Countless soul-eating ants gathered here. There is no doubt that this is the nest of soul-eating ants. No wonder the underground is so empty. The surroundings are definitely a sea of soul-eating ants. Such a scene made Zhang Ziyu completely sluggish in this moment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 824. He had no time to react at all. Even a large area above his head was filled with soul-eating ants. At this time, these endless soul-eating ants poured down like a waterfall. It was none other than Zhang Zizhe, the one from the Blood God camp. The boss can only run for his life at this time. The key is that when he rushed out, he was the first to bear the brunt and was swallowed up by the ocean of soul-eating ants that crashed down. Then Zhang Zizhe saw that hundreds of soul-eating ants were blasted into pieces every moment. The ancient god he rushed out with an angry roar and was swallowed up again. Perhaps knowing his power, the endless soul-eating ants surrounded him with thousands of layers inside and outside in a short period of time. The number of soul-eating ants is truly suffocating. The absolute overlord of the green demon realm is proving his authority with his cold will. I didn't expect that I would die here. This way of death is a bit ridiculous. Even the ancient gods were swallowed up at this time. He had no chance of leaving here alive, so Zhang Zizhe had actually made plans to die. As I write this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Just thinking that Ling Dang was still waiting for him in the evolutionary world, as an old father, he couldn't help but want to burst into tears. The next moment, he was swallowed up by the soul-eating ants. I don't want to die. It's really hard to reconcile having finally reached the divine realm, and then it's gone like this. but the soul-eating ants will show no mercy. But what Zhang Zizai never expected was that after those soul-eating ants swallowed him up, they didn't attack him. He looked around blankly. The densely packed soul-eating ants were isolated from the outside of the Demon Lord Cauldron. The area of the Demon Lord Cauldron was not large. The surrounding areas were full of soul-eating ants crawling around. But the key is that it's like he's not looking at himself. Could it be that what they sense is the soul aura of their prey, and the soul auras of Qingfen Longke and I are isolated by the Demon Lord Cauldron? This was Zhang Zizai's only guess after escaping from death, because he clearly felt that the soul-eating ants seemed to be unable to see him at all. They were waging war against the people who invaded their nests, and they were frighteningly fanatical. One by one, they came from Zhang Zizai's Demon Lord Cauldron. Climb over. In order to verify his guess, he held the Qingfen dragon bird in his hand and stretched out the range of the Demon Lord's Cauldron. As soon as he stretched out, all the soul-eating ants around him looked over, became excited and manic, and rushed towards them crazily. Zhang with quick eyes and quick hands, Qingfen Longke was pulled back. Even so, Qingfen Longke was still trembling with fear. Fortunately, they continued to be ignored after this. The Demon Lord Cauldron really saved my life several times. Zhang Zizai sighed with emotion. He was surrounded by densely packed soul-eating ants. Now he could only hear the terrifying sounds of fighting not far away. It was probably that the ancient god was trapped at the bottom of the ocean of soul-eating ants and wanted to break out, but he kept killing so many. New soul-eating ants will soon fill in. It is said that soul-eating ants rarely attack the ancient gods for fear of heavy losses, but when the ancient gods invade their nests and kill their compatriots, there is no possibility of the war ending. Poor guy. What Zhang Zizai was thinking was that he had to leave quickly while he was being attacked. Helplessly, he was also swallowed up in the sea of soul-eating ants. He couldn't see the north or south at all. Moreover, the Demon Lord Cauldron was being tossed around by the army of soul-eating ants. He had no idea where it would go. The ocean of ants still looked like a real ocean, giving him the feeling of driving a boat and drifting with the current. This experience is really dumbfounding. He was not out of danger yet, and Zhang Zizai didn't dare to relax. He had to go with the flow anyway, and he had a little control. At least he could still judge where the top was, and he was definitely right to go up. He crawled, and everywhere there was a boiling ant colony. I don't know if the big boss can survive. With such a delay, Xuanhuan and the others must have saved the day. I am taking advantage of these grandsons. No, I have given them such a great kindness for no reason. I must make some compensation. This Xuanhuan has a prominent family, so I must not let her go. After all, it was a life-saving grace. She had to make her lose everything to relieve her anger. He hadn't even climbed out of the sea of soul-eating ants, and he almost gave up. Suddenly he saw a bright light in front of him. He was overjoyed and quickly moved over there. He found that the closer he got to the bright light, the surrounding ants became smaller. There are fewer soul ants. When he finally broke out of the sea of soul-eating ants, he suddenly discovered that in front of him was just a cave in the mountain wall. He had not exited from here at all. When he looked back, he was still trapped in countless ant armies. Wenzheng. Countless soul-eating ants have almost sealed this cave. To be honest, no one may have visited such a place for tens of thousands of years. By the way, that bright light just now. He quickly walked into the cave and found that the cave was not big. The light in the cave came entirely from a cubic crystal in the corner. This crystal was covered with dirt, and the light came out through the dirt. Baby, Zhang Zizai felt blessed. This is a place that has not been visited for countless years. It would not be surprising at all if a treasure buried by soul-eating ants appears here. He quickly took the crystal in his hand. When he used the purification talisman to clean the dirt on the surface, the bright light illuminated the entire cave, turning it into daylight. Such daylight was very annoying to the soul-eating ants, so all the nearby soul-eating ants crawled out, leaving Zhang Zizai with some peace. This is. Zhang Zizai took a closer look. There seemed to be a flowing river in the cube crystal. The river formed a circle, like a reincarnation. The water in it flowed in a clockwise direction and never stopped. If Zhang Zizai guessed correctly, this should be an evolution source. However, he just didn't know what kind of evolution source this was and what level it was. But how come it appeared in the god's domain? It should be a god-level evolution source. It was supposed to die, but suddenly it could still gain something. Zhang Zizai was of course happy. This is called surviving a great disaster, and there must be blessings in the future. The ancients were really wise. They could summarize such meaningful words. He thought this evolution source was very interesting. It was a divine object born from the earth, and it was always so mysterious. This evolution source is a cubic crystal. Zhang Zizai took a closer look and found that it was somewhat similar to the infinite world that he had obtained some time ago and refused to let himself evolve. Infinite world is also a cubic crystal, transparent, and there seems to be layers of space inside, which has the power of space. And in front of him is also a cubic alert, also transparent and shining, with a circular river inside. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 825. At this time, there was no way to leave here in a hurry, so he took out the infinite world directly, and compared the two together. As expected, he found that except for the river and space inside, everything else was exactly the same. Same shape. Did I get the god-level evolution source? Zhang Zizai knew that the god-level evolution source was relatively common in the god realm, and the god-level evolution source was the real standard. Every god-level evolution source was very rare. Last time, he claimed that the evolution failed and wasted the infinite world, which caused so much regret and contempt. Even Xuanhuan was disappointed with himself. Just when he was happy, something incredible happened. He didn't notice that the two evolution sources that were close together suddenly changed. They actually formed a suction force between each other, which made them begin to merge together. The two completely overlapped. The crystal was still the same crystal, but the layers of space and the rivers connected from beginning to end actually overlapped completely. At this time, what appeared in Zhang Zizai's hand was completely an evolution source. Two god-level evolution sources merged into one. Zhang Zizai was dazed. He felt as if he had created some amazing creation. He had seen the fusion of evolution sources before. The previous source symbol could fuse evolution sources, which was equivalent to fusing various evolution sources together. But he didn't know whether it was directly fused through the source symbol. The infinite world is the power of space, so what power is the river? Zhang Zizai thought of the river of time in the Taixi universe soul refining technique. Time is time, and the river of time is the power of time. If the two can be fused together, doesn't it mean that this newly obtained square crystal evolution source is likely to be infinite time? Time and space are both very profound and terrifying powers. They are both considered supreme among the sources. They will only appear when they reach the 9th level of the source. It is basically impossible for ordinary people to master the power of time and space. Perhaps the totem granting power is the only way, but there are almost no evolution sources with the power of time and space in the world. Among them, the space power of the infinite world is slightly more common. He couldn't be sure what kind of power the river was, but he was a courageous person. Since he had encountered it, and since this place was a quiet place, and there was the Qingfeng dragon bird as the guardian, and the demon lord Cauldron as the bodyguard, since that was the case, he would try again to see if the totem could evolve. The last time he failed to absorb the infinite world to evolve, he was quite depressed. This time he mustered up his courage and sat cross-legged on the ground. Before he put the new evolution source in contact with his natal totem, he was a little nervous, because he knew that the current evolution source must be very precious. If the evolution failed, he would really cry bitterly. The failure of totem evolution is torture for ordinary people, especially the more precious evolution source. When they came out, they knew that their evolution failed, and their disappointed faces, Zhang Zizai could not forget it. But he couldn't control the success or failure of the totem evolution, and could only leave it to fate. When the evolution source came into contact with the totem, and when the two began to melt, Zhang Zizai finally breathed a sigh of relief and fell into a coma. This at least showed that the totem began to evolve, instead of the last time when the infinite world directly refused to let Zhang Zizai evolve. Zhang Zizai didn't know why this was happening. Maybe it was waiting for a new evolution source to appear in the dark. This involved fate, which was also a profound power that could not be figured out at all. Zhang Zizai felt like he was dreaming. In the dream, he traveled through worlds and spaces. In the dream, he drifted in an endless river, drifting for hundreds of years, thousands of years, endlessly. The reason why the river had no end was because it was a complete cycle. So, time in this world has no beginning and no end at all. This is time. Time is reincarnation. When you reach the so-called end, you are actually back to the beginning. Everything will start over again, just like the water in this river will never reach the end. I used to wonder where the Earth universe began. Where will it flow to? Now I have the answer. If the Earth universe begins at a point, an opportunity, will it eventually return to a point? And everything in this Earth universe is set in time. Will my birth and end also reincarnate countless times? Then my fate will always be the same, just like I am just a drop of water in this river, a speck of dust. In the Earth universe, time has no end, no beginning and end. Everything always flows in a crystal and never extinguishes. This is indeed the power of time. Zhang Zizai's dream kept shaking. He walked from space to time, and then from time to space. The power of the totem was directly given to him. He didn't need to practice at all. He just needed to understand. He suddenly saw his own natal sea, and he saw his natal totem, the black dragon. Under the new power, the black dragon was still growing. It seemed to have absorbed the sweet rain, and it grew very fast. The new power did not change its appearance, but it changed its temperament invisibly. Around his body, layers of space were flowing, and the breath of time was like a river, entwining around him. It had grown into a new existence. Before, it was, Taiji Shimo Dragon Totem. Now, it is, the infinite space-time Holy Dragon Totem. It is more powerful and more mysterious. When Zhang Zizai stared at the infinite space-time Holy Dragon, he gradually woke up and his consciousness returned to his body. Regarding space-time, countless good fortunes poured into his body, and new abilities merged into his flesh and blood instincts. Such good fortunes made his source of destruction grow. The evolutionary source of the two fusions is definitely the top evolutionary source. The benefits brought by this are very huge. Zhang Zizai's realm also changed, from the 4th level of the initial God realm to the 5th level of the initial God realm. The source of destruction grew again, and countless source forces surged. The divine power of the 10th level of the source seemed so extraordinary. And now, the brand new totem, absolutely the God level, is even more extraordinary. This totem directly gave Zhang Zizai the power of space-time, which is his totem divine power. At this time, an invisible blade appeared on his left and right hands, one was the space tremor, and the other was the flow of time. He thought, with his talent now, could he be considered a talent in the palace of the God King? Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 826. At the 5th level of the first God realm, he is getting closer and closer to becoming a god. Although she is still far behind Xuanhuan's 9th level of the first god realm, she is after all the most peak talent in the entire god's domain at this age. At the very least, his source and totem are no worse than the daughter of the god king. The gap in realm comes from the two people's origins, which can be made up after all. Unless Xuanhuan becomes a god, Zhang Zizai will find it difficult to pursue him. He currently knows nothing about the realm of the real ancient god, and it is still very slim. However, Zhang Zizai was very satisfied with the speed of progress. My totem should be regarded as the top one among the god-level totems. Originally, the infinite world is a very advanced god-level totem. When it merges with infinite time to form infinite time and space, it will definitely be more advanced. Yan Qingqi's totems may not be as high-end as mine. He now controls the power of time and space, and he is the one who knows best how terrifying this power is, especially when it is exerted with the power of the source of destruction. The lethality across more than two realms is absolutely normal. Qingfeng Longke knew that he had stronger power and flew around him excitedly. In fact, it was controlled by the beast control talisman. It did not lose itself. Almost everything was the same as before. It was just that the beast control talisman made it, and Zhang Ziyi's blood is connected. Let it come from the heart to protect Zhang Ziyi. Come on, we have to find a way to get out of here. An hour or two had passed, and now it was dark outside with no movement. The soul-eating ants seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Zhang Zizai went out and took a look. The nearby soul-eating ants were motionless, and their eyes were directly gray. He was surrounded by the demon lord cauldron, and when he was walking, the soul-eating ants didn't seem to notice his movement. The head of the blood god camp should have escaped. Although there are many soul-eating ants, it is probably impossible to eat an ancient god. He cautiously walked out of the cave. Soul-eating ants were scattered nearby, and in the distance was a dense sea of soul-eating ants, completely blocking the road above. After Zhang Zizai got closer, he used the demon lord cauldron to push away the soul-eating ants. They probably couldn't detect his soul aura. The soul-eating ants didn't wake up. When Zhang Zizai crowded in, they probably thought they belonged to them. The same kind of people are wandering around. They squirmed and squeezed away, allowing Zhang Ziyi to pass by. His eyes only brightened a little, but he didn't really wake up. It seems like this is the only way to squeeze out. He controlled the demon lord cauldron to squeeze upwards. The ocean of ants was endless, and he didn't even know where the end was. After squeezing for a while, black soul-eating ants were everywhere around him. It made one's scalp numb to see such a large number. It's amazing. It's so lively. According to the soul-eating ant queen, Zhang Zizai could only sigh. He had no other choice but to squeeze up aimlessly. He had to be patient, otherwise how could he get out? If the soul-eating ants don't attack you, it's already a blessing among misfortunes. After squeezing for about half an hour, I saw a bright light in front of me again. When I went in, I saw that it was a space jade pendant. This space jade pendant was full of blood, and the embossed text on it was the word Blood God. Blood God Camp, the material of this space jade pendant is very extraordinary. It is definitely impossible for ordinary Blood God Camp thugs to have yin-yang. This should belong to that ancient god. He opened the space jade pendant, counted the contents inside, and found that there was a large amount of property, various spiritual mines, elixirs, and many totem weapons, but of course there were no god-level totem weapons. For an ancient god, such a fortune was considered very poor, but for Zhang Zizai, this was definitely a windfall. There are also many divine crystals among them. Divine crystals are spiritual minerals that surpass holy-grade spiritual stones. They are the most common currency among the ancient gods. They themselves contain a large amount of divine energy, which can be cultivated, absorbed, and converted into source power. Although they are just ordinary divine crystals, There are hundreds of them, which can buy a lot of treasures, and you can buy almost the same god-level totem weapon. If he was fine, he wouldn't have thrown the Space Jade pendant here alone. The Space Jade pendant has no attraction to soul-eating ants. All this can only prove that there is at least a 90% chance that the leader of the Blood God camp will die. Here we are, eaten clean by soul-eating ants. Zhang Zizai took a breath of air. He knew that the master must have some weapons left, but he definitely didn't know where they were taken by the ocean of soul-eating ants. Soul-eating ants are so terrifying that they can even be eaten by ancient gods. Zhang Zizai was frightened for a moment. He really couldn't imagine what would have happened to him without the Demon Lord Cauldron. You have to get out of this damn place quickly. He didn't know if the Demon Lord's Cauldron would fail, so the top priority was definitely to escape. The ancient gods are all dead, which further proves that the soul-eating ant is the overlord here. He put away the Space Jade pendant and continued to crowd upwards, exhausting his energy. When he was extremely depressed, he finally ushered in the dawn of hope. He finally left the sea of soul-eating ants and returned to the intricate abyss outside. It was extremely quiet here, and other people broke in. For a moment, they had no idea that there would be such a death trap waiting for them. Even the ancient gods couldn't get out, let alone the others. Zhang Zizai ran away without saying a word. After getting out, he let the Qingfeng dragon bird fly dozens of miles away with him in its mouth, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. The green demon realm was dead silent and gloomy. There was no point in acting alone. Fortunately, he and Xuanhuan left behind the God Guidance Ring some time ago so that they could find each other's location. He probably felt the direction of Xuanhuan's God Guidance Ring and went there. I hope this guy is not dead. Can't he even deal with some rabble? Judging from the position of the God Guidance Ring, they are not too far away from Zhang Zizai. It is estimated that they should be fine. I just don't know whether they are continuing to look for the remains of the God Killer or avoiding the pursuit of the Blood God camp. About 2/4 of an hour later, Zhang Zizai climbed over a black low mountain and saw the four of them. They also judged Zhang Zizai's location from the God Guidance Ring and came towards Zhang Zizai. When Zhang Zizai saw Xuanhuan, she walked to Zhang Zizai in 3 or 2 steps, her eyes full of shock, and some concern, and asked, "How could you not be dead? Is there anyone who asks like this? Are you eager for me to die?" Zhang Zizai said unhappily. "That's not what I meant. I just think that it's unlikely that you can escape the pursuit of the Blood God camp's leader. I have no way to deal with this ancient god," Xuanhuan said solemnly. She looked at Zhang Zizai and was even more shocked when she found that he was unharmed. "Look at me. It's one thing. However, this time I saved your lives. Do you want to repay me? For example, I don't mind if you pledge your love to me." Zhang Zizai said with a smile. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 827. He originally thought that Xuanhuan would be angry, but he didn't expect that she pursed her lips and said seriously, "It was you who saved us this time." "I'll do it. If you go back to the God King's palace, I will definitely give you enough benefits." Zhang Zizai, "Thank you. You are really nice. We wrongly blamed you before," Yun Ziao said softly. "You are all grateful. It's not in vain that I almost lost my life to save you." Zhang Zizai said that he was very great, and he was full of righteousness at this time. "This time we met again," Xuanhuan's attitude towards her was better. She hesitated for a while towards Zhang Zizai, and finally said, "Remembering how I humiliated you before, I feel really ashamed now. I didn't expect you to ignore the past grudges. Like this, the comparison shows that my character is too low. Anyway, I will treat you as a friend from now on." For Xuanhuan, friends are a very important identity. She doesn't have many friends. At this time, she has actually recognized Zhang Zizai in her heart. The 2 consecutive attempts to turn the tide regardless of past grudges really made her heart tremble. It was definitely impossible to fall in love. They were still not from the same world, and she had never thought about it. Becoming friends was her greatest recognition of Zhang Zizhe, a person she once hated. Friend? I don't agree. There is an account I haven't settled with you yet, Zhang Zizhe said arrogantly. What do you mean? Don't touch your nose or face, Zhang Zizhe. When Yan Qingqi heard his words, for some reason, a fire burst out in his heart. Zhang Zizhe glanced at him and ignored him. Shut up, Suyuexi glared at Yan Qingqi instead, making him feel angry. Recently, he has lost more and more sense of proportion and seems to be following his inner demon, which makes Suyuexi somewhat bored with him. In the past, he knew what was possible and what was not, was gentle enough, and could occasionally talk to each other. How could Suyuexi not know his feelings for her, but he had repeatedly become hostile to Zhang Zizhe, and was not as good as Zhang Zizhe. The exposure of this jealousy showed the narrow-mindedness of his true character, but Yan Qingqi himself was completely unaware of it. He continued to stare at Zhang Zizhe. By the way, how did you escape the pursuit of the ancient god? Do you know how the ancient god found us? Suyuexi asked. Don't get too close to him. If we don't hide first, we may still be found by the ancient god, Yan Qingqi said nervously. Shut up, didn't you hear me? Suyuexi glanced at him a little bored, and then faced Zhang Zizhe with a smile. Such a contrast made Yan Qingqi feel like he had eaten a fly for a moment, and he was so disgusted that he wanted to vomit. He soon became more irritable, and the eyes looking at Zhang Zizhe became even colder. He knew that it must be because of Zhang Zizhe that Suyuexi scolded him repeatedly. In the past, she regarded him as the most intimate person. Such a contrast makes me feel like there is a devil in my heart. The Suyuexi in front of her was so stunning, but she seemed to be gone from her eyes, and her anger and fear continued to simmer together. Yes, how did you and us escape the pursuit of that ancient god? Yun Ziao was also very interested, looking at Zhang Zizhe with gleaming eyes. That's it? Please listen to me tell you my heroic deeds in detail. I guarantee that you will be so impressed by me after listening to them. Zhang Zizhe's exaggerated personality has never been restrained. He began to vividly describe his experiences. When countless soul-eating ants appeared in the abyss, he even let out a cry, which shocked Yun Ziao. Why are you like this? Almost all the men Yun Ziao met respected her very much, and Ningmu Feng also treated her with respect. Faced with Zhang Zizhe's misbehavior, although she cursed with resentment, in fact, in her heart still quite happy. And Ningmu Feng saw all this. He is not a coquettish man like Zhang Zizhe, and there are some things that he really can't learn. I was hiding inside until just now. When I saw there was no movement outside, I used my demon lord cauldron to crawl out. On the way out, what do you think I saw? Zhang Zizhe blinked. The ruins of the god of death. Suyuexi's eyes lit up. You have a beautiful idea. Zhang Zizhe admired his imagination. He took out the space jade pendant belonging to the leader of the blood god camp and said, this should be the man who is chasing me. He even threw away the space jade pendant. What does it mean? Let me see. Just when Suyuexi wanted to, Zhang Zizhe took it back and let her pounce. Just when she was biting her red lips and about to get angry, Zhang Zizhe gave it to her. However, the way she was biting her lips just now, it's really charming. It should be his. There are a lot of divine crystals inside. Suyuexi returned the things to Zhang Zizhe. She didn't care about them. At this time, her eyes lit up and asked, you mean, he died in the hands of the soul-eating ant? It will definitely be eaten clean, Zhang Zizhe said. In other words, we are safe. Yun Ziao's gloomy expression cleared up immediately. To be honest, her beauty was not bad at all. That kind of tenderness was a different kind of beauty. Suyuexi also breathed a sigh of relief and said, these people have done many evil things, and they will eventually be punished. They were just executed today, and I don't know how many people have been harmed. You did a good thing. That's right. I have always been accustomed to doing chivalry and justice. This is the style of my generation, Zhang Zizai said with a smile. Shameless Suyuexi made him laugh at his response. To be honest, such a shameless person can be quite funny sometimes. Now that the ancient god is dead, he is completely relaxed. You not only saved us, but also completely eradicated the source of the trouble. She looked at Zhang Zizai with her beautiful eyes, and there were ripples in them. Are you ready to fall in love with me? Don't be too impulsive, I'm a serious person, Zhang Zizai refused sternly. Suyuexi raised her hand, she wanted to strangle this person to death. Just now, you have a score to settle with me? Did I hit the person you like? Suyuexi asked. Bai Yingying? She is not the person I like, but a sister who I have a very good relationship with. I have many such sisters, Zhang Zizai smiled. No, Suyuexi thought about it and found that she did take it for granted that they were a couple, but she didn't expect that they were not. I thought he had a girlfriend and was having an affair with Qin Yi, but now I don't see any. My father and I promised that I would pass the level directly without dropping any stars, but she snatched one away. I was in a bad mood at the time, so I did something wrong. I thought a lot about it this time, and I think I have changed a little. With her qualifications, she will probably be able to enter the God King Palace next year. I will apologize to her then, Suyuexi said. As the daughter of the God King, she is willing to apologize, which is a big concession for her friend. From this sentence, it can be seen that she has indeed changed. That won't work. An apology is not enough. How did you teach her a lesson? I have to help her teach you a lesson, Zhang Zizai said. Are you sure you dare to hit me? Suyuexi raised her eyebrows and looked at him with disdain. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 828. Why don't you dare? Zhang Zizai smiled. This debt must be settled. Come here, Suyuexi was annoyed. Given her kindness, he still dared to be serious with her. Come here, Zhang Zizai fell out immediately. He stood right in front of Suyuexi. When the other party was sure that he didn't dare to touch her, he stretched out his hand and slapped her pretty face, making a snapping sound. He even touched it and said with emotion, "My face is so tender, I think I have never been beaten in my life." Suyuexi was stunned. She really didn't expect Zhang Zizai to dare to hit herself. Although it didn't hurt, it was not painful. She covered her face and gritted her teeth. My father has never beaten me, but you actually. Come on, why are you here again if you forget your identity? Zhang Zizai was too lazy to coddle her. He still had to pay back his debts. You are really ignorant. How could Suyuexi lose his temper? It's just that this period is a special time. After all, she is still struggling on the road to becoming a god. If you think about it carefully, he has saved his partner's life twice, especially the second time. It's such a great thing for the first time, so giving him a slap in the face is actually nothing. She really swallowed this breath alive. It would be absolutely unbelievable if the Dushan King and others knew about it, because in their minds, Suyuexi had never been someone who could tolerate anger. The thugs from the Blood God camp really taught her a hard lesson. Don't be upset, we can be considered friends now. Come on, shake hands. Zhang Zizai stretched out his hand. Don't even think about touching me. Suyuexi was so angry that her mouth bulged. She was quite cute like this. Sure enough, beauties always take advantage. Although her personality was disgusting before, after she changed, she really couldn't be angry. Haha, even dogs know how to shake hands. Zhang Zizai smiled. Suyuexi understood that if she talked to him, she would be angry to death sooner or later. You guys seem to be flirting, haha. Yun Ziao suddenly laughed and looked at Suyuexi with strange eyes. Based on her understanding of Suyuexi, she knew that the witch didn't fight back after being slapped. What is the meaning? Don't be ridiculous, I'll beat you up, Suyuexi glared. Even so, her heart still trembled a little when she was suddenly teased, and her face turned a little rosy. I'm not afraid, Yun Ziao said. Everyone is really rebelling. Suyuexi was on the verge of crying, feeling like her majesty was gone. Sister Yuexi. Yan Qingqi's face turned red after seeing so much. He couldn't bear to see Suyuexi being beaten, let alone that she didn't fight back after being beaten. In his heart, Suyuexi was the most noble person in God's domain. How could she be bullied like this? What's going on? Suyuexi saw his excited look and knew that he was going to be annoying again. Sure enough, he gritted his teeth and said, I think Zhang Zizai is definitely lying. How could he avoid the pursuit of the ancient gods? I found that this is definitely a conspiracy from beginning to end. He may have something to do with the Blood God camp. He is trying to get close to you. He just entered the God King's palace, and then he made every step of the way, arranging 2 good scenes of heroes saving beauties to make you like him. If he continues like this, he will get you. This person is definitely someone with ulterior motives. He has done so many things. The design is all for you, he just doesn't know that his lies have big flaws. How can an ancient god not even be able to kill him? No matter how fast Qingfeng Longke is, he can't survive the soul-eating ant. The nest is even more fabricated. After finishing this long paragraph, Yan Qingqi stared at Zhang Zizai, who was convinced of his speculation. Zhang Zizai was shocked. Damn it, what kind of imagination is this? This made Suyuexi stunned for a moment, and for a short time, she looked at Zhang Zizai suspiciously. Is this too complicated? Can he think that he can follow him to the God King's battlefield? The key is that coming to the God King's battlefield is a decision made by the King of Gods after the assessment in the God King's palace. Yun Ziao, he said confusedly. So he must have taken advantage of the situation and planned 2 good shows with his friends from the Blood God camp. Didn't you realize that your affection for him continues to grow? This is a despicable method. Yan Qingqi was almost excited. Breathing out fire. Zhang Zizai, what's wrong with you? Suyuexi hesitated. She was a little scared. After all, she knew how important her identity was. Zhang Zizai sighed and said, I think some people really have too much imagination. In that case, I don't mind telling the truth. I'm married, I have a wife, and my daughter is almost 1 year old. They are just not around. She is beautiful, but I already have a wife, so you have no chance. Suyuexi was stunned. This sentence made her feel strangely disappointed, but it proved that Yan Qingqi's inference was wrong. Stop thinking so wildly. You've recently had a brain problem. Think about it, she scolded Yan Qingqi irritably. Sister Yuexi, don't let him lie to you. He is trying to eliminate your suspicions. He will definitely have further means in the future. Yan Qingqi became even more excited. Senior brother Yan, hearing this, Zhang Zizai also felt a little unhappy. His eyes became cold and he said word by word, I find that you really have a lot of opinions on me. This makes me feel very annoyed. I want to go back. I would be even more annoyed if I have to spend time with you day and night in the temple of the God King. Otherwise, we can put an end to this matter ourselves and decide the winner through a battle. The loser will keep his mouth shut from now on. Besides, if I lose, I will leave directly to eliminate your doubts. What do you think? Since entering the God King Palace, this person's eyes have been strange. Now Suyuexi has a lot of enlightenment in order to become a god, but this person has always been annoying. After saying so much, Zhang Zizai actually wants to beat him up and make him shut up. What's the skill of using the Qingfeng dragon bird? Yan Qingqi looked at him with disdain, with an expression that said, I won't be fooled. If Qingfeng Dragon Bird doesn't do it, I will beat you myself, Zhang Zizai said. You just want to spend 3 nights with me just because you have a god-level totem weapon and I can't hurt you, Yan Qingqi frowned. I don't need the Demon Lord Cauldron either, Zhang Zizai said. So you are sick in the head? How can you be my opponent? With Qingfeng Dragon Bird as capital, do you really think you can be considered a number 1 character? Sun Yu and I are both at the 7th level of the initial god realm, but do you think that he and I have the same strength? Yan Qingqi said contemptuously. Whether he is your opponent or not, you will know after you try. Since you are targeting me so much, why don't you beat me and drive me away? Then no one will stop you from pursuing Suyuexi. Zhang Zizai laughed dumbly. Shut up, Yan Qingqi was furious. He couldn't stand it anymore. He said to Suyuexi, Sister Yuexi, this man is definitely a sinister person. He is in the same group with the Blood God camp. Please give me a chance to expose his true face. Suyuexi didn't expect things to develop to such a stage. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 829. Don't be like this, we are all family, don't fight and kill each other, Yun Xiao said worriedly. Sister Xiao, he and I are not family. We are the children of the god, and he is a dirty person. Yan Qingqi was in a rage and could not calm down. Zhang Zizai, Suyuexi narrowed her eyes, she needed to confirm. This kind of person will be honest after a beating, you listen to me, Zhang Zizai said. Are you sure? Sure, Zhang Zizai said. Okay, I won't interfere, you fight on your own, Suyuexi said. Don't act like we are fighting for the right to mate with you, I just want to beat him, Zhang Zizai laughed. Those 3 words made Suyuexi almost fall to the ground. She now really believed that Zhang Zizai and the Blood God camp were in the same group, otherwise how could he be so shameless? Shameless, vulgar, and lowly person, I am ashamed to be with you. Yan Qingqi's neck was full of blue veins. This is a matter of reproduction, the foundation of the common inheritance of humans and gods. That is a vulgar and lowly thing. You are young and have a brain disease, Zhang Zizai said contemptuously. How useless, Yan Qingqi knew long ago that he was no match for him. He is very hot now, and he has never reached this kind of fighting state. Top source, God-level totem, his talent is very close to Suyuexi, and God-level Yu has cultivated him for 15 years to create what he is now. Compared with Sun Yu, the resources he has are 1 above and 1 below. His God-level totem is called, 8-part Buddha Demon Shark Totem. 8-part Buddha is the top God-level evolution source. When his son was only 3 years old, God-level Yu directly used various evolution sources to evolve his totem to the God level. In the future, Yan Qingqi will at least be a God level. If he is given hundreds or thousands of years, he will be a figure who can call the wind and rain in the God realm. At this time, he did have such a temperament. This totem, as the absolute overlord in the vast sea, was absolutely terrifying when it showed its ferocity. Behind him, the vast sea was boiling, and a pale giant beast showed its sharp teeth. Although Yan Qingqi's weapon was not a god-level totem weapon, it could be regarded as the top-level weapon in the mortal world, and its power was even close to that of a god-level totem weapon. It was a blue halberd called the Sea-Splitting Divine Halberd. He held the Sea-Splitting Divine Halberd in his hand, looking majestic, and at this time he had infinite murderous intent. He was very irritable and full of momentum. His totem power was manifested, and for a moment, the phantoms of 8 pagodas appeared around him, surrounding Zhang Zizai with the direction of the 8 diagrams. These 8 pagodas directly showed a terrifying suppression ability. This was the ability of his god-level totem, which could suppress his opponent so that he could not move and was completely out of breath. The suppression of the 8 division pagoda is a dreaded method in the god realm. With this totem alone, ordinary people in the 8th level of the initial god realm are not Yan Qingqi's opponents. He and Sun Yu are indeed not at the same level. And his method is not just the ability of the totem. And his totem ability is not just one kind. Like Zhang Zizai's Tai Chi beginning Demon Dragon transformation, he also has a Demon Shark transformation. Before taking action, his body turns pale, almost like white rock or steel. After the Demon Shark transformation, his body is also extremely powerful, not inferior to Zhang Zizai's beginning Demon Dragon transformation. Such Yan Qingqi is indeed outstanding to an outrageous degree among his 15-year-old peers. Zhang Zizai is 4 years older than him, but he doesn't take Zhang Zizai seriously at all. In his opinion, Zhang Zizai, this arrogant guy, will soon pay the price for his ignorance. 3 styles of controlling the sea. He suddenly took action, rushed to kill first, and under the suppression of the 8-part pagoda, he directly attacked Zhang Zizai. Whenever his opponent was suppressed by the 8-part pagoda, he could only let him attack. But this time, it seemed different. His 3 styles of controlling the sea were a battle tactic tailored for him by the Lord of Control. He used the sea-splitting divine halberd, like Kang controlling the sea. The suppression and the 8-part pagoda were really amazing. This kind of explosion hit him head-on, and the power of the sea-splitting divine halberd split out countless azure auras. It seemed that Zhang Zizai was a little worried, because he seemed to have no reaction at all, completely crushed by the mighty Yan Qingqi. Junior brother Zhang, you will never understand the gap between ordinary people and us. Yan Qingqi seemed to be calm, and this calmness was hidden with deep arrogance. Really? Zhang Zizai smiled slightly, and he was playing with 2 transparent and invisible blades in his hands. The blades changed their shapes in his hands, as if 2 snakes were controlled by it. This is the power of space. Su Yuxi's pupils shrank slightly. This power reminded her of a source of evolution. She looked at Zhang Zizai in shock, thinking, could it be? Just when she was still shocked, facing Yan Qingqi who was performing the 3 styles of controlling the sea, Zhang Zizai first hit an invisible blade with his left hand. The invisible blade was silent and looked very small, and directly faced the mighty sea-splitting divine halberd. Infinite, time-breaking. This is one of the abilities of the infinite space-time Holy Dragon Totem. This is the power of time. The time-breaking blade can cut off time. If time is a long river, then this time-breaking blade can be like a dam, instantly intercepting time and reaching a state of stillness. At this moment, the time-breaking blade directly hit Yan Qingqi's sea-splitting divine halberd in an invisible posture. Unimaginable things happened. After being hit by the time-breaking blade, Yan Qingqi, including all his prestige, was actually still in the air at this time. This was a complete stillness, as if he was fixed, and there was a moment of no movement. And long before this, Zhang Zizai threw out another kind of knife. Infinite, sky-splitting slash. The moment the time-breaking blade hit, sky-splitting slash appeared invisibly, and when it approached Yan Qingqi, it suddenly erupted. This was the power of space. When the sky-splitting slash hit the motionless Yan Qingqi, the violent space power instantly enveloped him. At that moment, the torn space was like 1,000 knives, sweeping over Yan Qingqi's body. In this moment, countless wounds were cut, and it was even easy to tear the space and pierce his body. Puff! The power of the time-breaking blade was only for a moment, and in this moment, the sky-splitting slash had already made Yan Qingqi, covered in blood, fall to the ground and twitch, and his life or death was unknown. The first time he used the power of time and space, Zhang Zizai himself was actually stunned, let alone the 3 people watching the battle. Zhang Zizai could only think that the strongest god-level totem in history was born. Once the time-breaking blade was released, the sky-splitting slash, the most terrifying killing, could destroy everything. My uncle is too strong. Zhang Zizai concluded. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 830. This battle was a complete crushing defeat. Yan Qingqi, who had the 8-part pagoda, used the C-splitting divine halberd to perform the 3 C-suppressing styles, which was very powerful, but Zhang Zizai was defeated by using 2 invisible blades to break through directly. It looked like a little effort to get a lot out of nothing. However, Su Yuexi, Ning Mufeng and Yun Ziao could all see that the 2 invisible blades were actually the most extraordinary power, and they were completely different. Although it was the second blade that caused the destruction, the first blade was actually more terrifying. It hit Yan Qingqi, causing everything on his body, including his 3 C-suppressing styles, to fall into a state of stillness at that moment. Otherwise, relying on the sky-splitting slash alone might not be able to cause such lethality. Now, Zhang Zizai smiled and made light of it, while Yan Qingqi was covered with wounds, and his internal organs were torn apart by space and destructive power, and he was dying for a while. After saying so many bad things to him, Zhang Zizai had wanted to beat him up to wake him up, so he showed no mercy when he attacked. Only when this guy couldn't get up would he know that the outcome was decided, so that he wouldn't show mercy, he would think there was still a chance. Brother Yan, I'm sorry, I didn't control the strength well, and you suffered. You must have a lot of healing elixirs on you, so you should heal your wounds quickly, Zhang Zizai said with a teasing smile. Yan Qingqi struggled, his face was pale at the moment, and it was difficult for him to even get up, and his body was covered with mud. He stared at Zhang Zizai with wide eyes, his mind was still blank. Of course, he didn't expect that he would lose to Zhang Zizai. This kind of fantasy actually happened, and in a moment, he didn't even react to the collapse. Impossible, what did you do? Yan Qingqi couldn't believe it. He climbed up with a crazy look and roared, this is definitely not your strength. You must have cheated. You dare to mess with me. Are you sure you want to embarrass yourself? They saw it clearly. Of course, I don't mind making you more seriously injured, Zhang Zizai smiled. His calmness formed a sharp contrast with Yan Qingqi's ferocity. It's time for him to tear up that arrogant face. Every word he ridiculed Zhang Zizai turned into a slap on his face. Enough, Yan Qingqi, shut up and heal your wounds, don't say anything. Su Yuexi showed a look of annoyance to him and scolded him directly. Sister Yuexi. Yan Qingqi felt despair in her eyes. He had a premonition that he would lose hope completely after this defeat, even if he was still the son of Yu Shenjun. Shut up, Su Yuexi said unbearably. Yan Qingqi sat on the ground and couldn't help looking up at Kang, his eyes full of despair. When he saw Zhang Zizai again, he was filled with endless resentment. He silently took out the elixir and began to heal himself. At this time, Su Yuexi and Yun Ziao had already surrounded Zhang Zizai and looked at him like a star. Such a person makes people hate him. Yan Qingqi's heart was bleeding. In this proud life, how could he imagine that he would fall to such a state? He probably forgot who saved his life when he was almost beheaded last time. People who are too conceited and self-esteem are always a little forgetful. The elixir he applied to his wounds now seemed to have accumulated the anger of hatred and burned fiercely. This was the elixir made by his father, and the effect was of course good. Although this injury was very serious, it would not be a problem to recover in a few days. Let me help you. Ning Muofeng came over and took the elixir in his hand. Did you see it? Yan Qingqi's eyes were bloodshot. In his field of vision, Su Yuexi and Yun Ziao were very happy to talk to Zhang Zizai. Their eyes were full of surprise and a little admiration of girls. Yes, I saw it, Ning Muofeng said. What do you think? This man is a disaster. He has too much luck. He also has the means to please girls. You are completely defeated by him this time, Ning Muofeng said. He, if you don't do something, you will regret it for the rest of your life sooner or later, Yan Qingqi said fiercely. Ning Muofeng was silent. Yun Ziao shouted for him to come over. He applied the medicine to Yan Qingqi and then stood up and came to Yun Ziao's side. Guess what method he used just now? Yun Ziao held his hand, her eyes full of joy. What? Ning Muofeng was a little uncomfortable. She felt so concerned about another man. He was thinking, what does it have to do with him what other people use? He is a liar. He was lying when he failed to evolve last time. He didn't use it to evolve at all. The infinite world is still in his hands. Suyuexi was happy and angry. She felt that Zhang Zizai was really bold when she brought up this matter. Fortunately, the result was good. So this time the evolution was successful and you have a god-level totem, Ning Muofeng asked. He also had a god-level totem, so his tone was relatively calm. In fact, he didn't understand why the two women were so excited. It's not that simple. He was so lucky. This time in the soul-eating ant's nest, he actually got the legendary time evolution source infinite time. This evolution source should not have appeared for a long time. Only some top forces have records of it. 11ER and I have looked it up. At that time, we saw that the two evolution sources, infinite world and infinite time, had the possibility of fusion. Once fused, the infinite space-time evolution source would be formed, which would be the top-level god-level evolution source. Once evolved successfully, it would almost be the top-level god-level totem, even more special and powerful than 11ER's totem. Infinite space-time. Now Ning Muofeng finally understood why they were so excited. The legendary evolution source was actually born. Such a god-level evolution source may not have appeared for hundreds of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. If it did not evolve successfully, it would be a great waste, but once it evolved successfully, it would be of great significance. In short, Zhang Zizai's talent level was originally at the bottom of the Divine King Palace, but now he has directly jumped to the highest level. In addition to his lack of parental background, this level of evolutionary source allows him to be valued almost like Yun Ziao and Yan Qingqi at the level of personal talent. Brother Zhang, did you succeed in evolving? Ning Muofeng asked with a dry mouth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 831. You are indeed lucky, Zhang Zizai said. There is nothing to hide. The power of his totem is easy to see. And the most important thing is that he wants to be famous now and wants her to hear his reputation. If you are gifted vertically and horizontally, your reputation will naturally spread far and wide. That was the power of time and space just now. It is definitely the top power. Qingqi can't stop it at all. Suyuexi saw it with hot eyes. In fact, she envied Zhang Zizai's power. If it weren't for your low level, I all want to have a fight with you and experience the lethality of the power of time and space. Let me try it for you. When Zhang Zizai smiled, an invisible blade about 2 inches long appeared between his fingers. He played with the invisible blade and flicked it, hitting Suyuexi's long hair that was flying in the wind. Superior. Buzz. At that moment, her long hair was frozen in the air, without moving at all. This is the power of the time-breaking blade. Once it hits, it is truly amazing. Xianmiao. Suyuexi looked at Zhang Zizai with emotion, her eyes shining a little. My sister is really lucky. She accepted you as a divine disciple. When you return to the God King's palace this time, I will share your talent with my father. My father will definitely give you the best training. At least you can go to the ancient Tower of Gods at any time. If he doesn't let me, I will take you up there. Ah, please tell me, does this count as being kept by a rich woman? Zhang Zizai said with a smile. You talkative, beg for a slap. Suyuexi rolled her eyes at him, her charming eyes were very charming. This guy didn't have a long memory, and he forgot that he had just been slapped by Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai was very pleased with her change. At least he believed that this was the way to become a god. In the past, he was arrogant, but Zhang Zizai did not believe that he could become a god if he relied on his status and had no true self. He felt that Suyuexi should thank the king of the gods for not sending her here. It would have been very difficult for her to go through the process of becoming a god. The people in the blood god camp had created it for her. I find that you two are a good match. Yun Ziao secretly smiled and said, it is the most destined relationship between men and women who have passed the test of the God King's palace together. Yao if you act stupid again, I will strangle you to death. I didn't hear that he has a wife and daughter, Suyuexi said. I'm all lying to you. I don't believe it anyway, Yun Ziao said. Zhang Zizai looked at Suyuexi. It was easy to be tempted by such a proud girl, and she was so beautiful. However, remembering her bad temper before, he still stayed away from her. She is fine now. Who knows when she will fall out? Think about it, Bai Yingying is the cutest. Thinking about it again, Shen Xiao and Ling Xian are both pretty good. But if I think about it more, she is the best. No one can give me that kind of unforgettable love. Those days and nights are simply unforgettable. Yan Qingqi heard about Wu Yang time and space, but he didn't say much, and his face was silent. Suyuexi communicated with him, and he probably thought too much, but Zhang Zizai could see that he still had doubts about himself. Even resentment that wants to be put to death. This kind of proud person who has never suffered is difficult to deal with. If you are targeted by him, you can't resist. Once you resist him, you won't give up. However, he was too lazy to pay attention to his defeated generals. He now had more ambitious goals. The head of the blood god camp is dead, so our crisis is over. Let's continue looking for the remains of the god of death. I have an idea. Zhang Zizai Suyuexi looked at him with hopeful eyes. If you have any ideas, why are you staring at me? Zhang Zizai said. I need your help. Don't mother-in-law and mother-in-law. He was still so arrogant, but no one happened to talk to Suyuexi in this way, so it naturally seemed novel and interesting. I just looked at the location of your nest, and I found that based on the map's markings, it is also true that that place is also the ruins of the god of death. In fact, that location is not far from the first time we encountered the soul-eating ants, and you are still there where the source of evolution was obtained. It must be an inaccessible place occupied by soul-eating ants. Her beautiful eyes stared into Zhang Zizai's eyes. So what? So I think the ruins of the god of death are probably there, but it's just the nest of soul-eating ants, so it's hard to find. Then what? You have the demon lord cauldron, and you are the only one who can enter the abyss to find the relics of the god of death. Go in and help me find the relics of the god of death. Suyuexi raised her chin slightly, with a graceful curve. Zhang Zizai smiled and said, are you a fool? Even if I find it, what can I do? You can't get in. Does this experience of becoming a god belong to me? Really? Suyuexi was distressed and said, by the way, doesn't your demon lord cauldron have a range? I think both of them can carry it. You are not the one carrying the Qingfeng dragon bird. Zhang Zizai said, no, I don't want to go to that ghost place anymore. If it fails, I will end up like that guy from the blood god camp. Suyuexi was annoyed and said, why are you so greedy for life and afraid of death? You can live till now if you don't fear life and death, Zhang Zizai said. Then what should we do? I think it's very possible. If we don't go in, shall we go back home? Do you think that's reasonable? Suyuexi began to change her approach, looked at him pitifully, and said, just do me a favor. She has never acted coquettishly to anyone other than the king of the gods. This coquettish look really makes people feel numb. Beauty has advantages. Zhang Zizai thought about it and felt shamelessly relieved. In fact, if he thought about it carefully, since I am also interested in the ruins of the god of death, so I will always help. It's no good. Zhang Zizai spoke openly and honestly. If we enter the god of death ruins, there are benefits inside. I can share some with you, Xuanhuan whispered. It's a deal. Zhang Zizai's eyes lit up. In fact, this is what he wanted, otherwise he would not bother to explore. After all, his life is in danger. Greedy ghost Xuanhuan despised his mercenary behavior. Then take 2 people down, who else besides you? Zhang Zizai's eyes swept around Yun Ziao, Ning Mufeng, and Yan Qingqi. Yao Xuanhuan first thought of her sisters, but then she thought, forget it, you should go with Ning Mufeng, so that this guy doesn't have to worry about it outside. Yun Ziao could only say oh, she wanted to go in a little, but she was a little scared. Qingqi, Xuanhuan looked at him and shook her head, saying, you haven't recovered from your injuries yet, and with your strength, it's useless to go in. Yan Qingqi took a deep breath and said, just the 2 of you go down, it will be easier to escape. This situation would only make him extremely annoyed. He certainly didn't want them to be alone, but this was Xuanhuan's initiative and it was also the only feasible way at the moment. He actually didn't dare to go down himself. At this time, seeing the 2 of them, he even cursed silently in his heart, let you both die down there. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 832. Okay, then the 2 of us will go down, and the 3 of you will hide up there. Don't go anywhere, and be careful to protect yourself at all times. Xuanhuan gave some instructions. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. When she and Zhang Zizai turned around, Yan Qingqi saw them leaning against each other, his eyes full of bloodshot. Ning Mufeng could only shake his head and hold Yun Ziao's hand. Just as he was about to say something, Yun Ziao pulled her hand out and waved to Zhang Zizai, saying, you should be careful. Ning Mufeng looked at her caring eyes and said, you care about them? Of course, 11er is my best sister, Yun Ziao said. Oh, that's right, Ning Mufeng said. What's wrong with you? It's weird. You don't want to accept Zhang Zizai? Didn't you have the best relationship with him at the beginning? Yun Ziao was a little confused. Why can't men see through it? No way, I admire him. Ning Mufeng smiled and glanced at Yan Qingqi on the side. That's it. When Yun Ziao looked again, Zhang Zizai and the others had already left her sight. Are you sure you are brave enough to go down with me? Zhang Zizai asked again and again. You are more talkative than a woman, Xuanhuan said. Hold me tight, Zhang Zizai said. What do you mean? Zhang Zizai laughed and stretched out his hand to hold her arm and lifted her up. The 2 of them were very close, and then he jumped down. When he knew that he was about to go down to the abyss, even Qingfeng Longke stuck to Zhang Zizai, fearing that he would fall out of the range of the Demon Lord Cauldron. What are you doing? She had never hugged arms so intimately with other strange men before. She was a little flustered for a moment, but the next moment, they fell directly into the sea of sleeping soul-eating ants. When she saw the dense soul-eating ants were within her reach, and the range of the Demon Lord Cauldron was actually very large, she trembled all over. This time, without Zhang Zizai, she took the initiative to stretch out her 2 hands and hug Zhang Zizai's arms tightly, fearing that she would be thrown out by the rolling Demon Lord Cauldron. Remember to hold this handsome guy tightly. If you are thrown out and eaten because of shyness, it's not my fault, Zhang Zizai said seriously. Shameless thing, hurry up and find the remains of the god of death for me, stop talking nonsense. She looked at these ferocious soul-eating ants. Under such a close observation, she could see the mouthparts and fangs clearly. Although the blood-red compound eyes were dim, they were actually very gloomy. In addition, there were too many of them, and she was panicking. Without Zhang Zizai's words, she wanted to stick to him. Hey, you're hugging too tightly. Men and women should not be intimate. Zhang Zizai found that she had hugged him around his waist, and her beautiful body was tightly against him. Such a fragrant girl's fragrance was shrouded in the Demon Lord's cauldron. Such a beautiful woman really made people feel distracted. Shut up, Shut up, Suyuexi's face was ruddy, but she was really scared. No matter what Zhang Zizai did, she would not let go. Fortunately, Yan Qingqi did not follow, otherwise she really wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. I think you are not looking for the remains of the god of death, but you are really taking advantage of my beauty to flirt with me, Zhang Zizai said. Before he finished speaking, the girl pinched his waist hard, making him grimace in pain. Sure enough, shy women are more aggressive, and a piece of meat was almost pinched off. Can you shut up? Suyuexi raised her head and looked at him angrily. The female knight is mighty and domineering. Zhang Zizai could only admit it and continue to accept her flirting. In fact, he was joking. It was a dream that men dared not dream of, to let the daughter of the king of the gods hold him like this, and even the soft part rubbed against him from time to time. Hey, you have a wife and children, is it true? Zhang Zizai squeezed the soul-eating ants around to find the remains of the god of death. She was bored and started to chat. Why are you asking this? You really have intentions towards me? I don't accept taking concubines, Zhang Zizai said. I find that you can't talk nicely. It's rare that I recognize you and treat you as a friend, so I want to get to know you better, Suyuexi said seriously. No matter how much I know, I won't accept taking a concubine, Zhang Zizai said. Suyuexi felt funny and angry, and wanted to pinch him again, but she thought about it and held back. She suddenly felt that it seemed not bad to hug a man with a strong back and strong waist like this. After a while, she said again, look at me, if I really like someone, no matter who he is, no matter what wife and children he has, no matter how many wives and children he has, I will snatch him away, I don't care. So exciting? Then you still despise me for seducing Qin Yi, aren't you the same? Zhang Zizai said contemptuously. You really seduced Qin Yi? There is something wrong with your aesthetics. What's the problem? She has bigger breasts than you, Zhang Zizai said. Why are you so vulgar? I am only vulgar, not vulgar. What does it mean? Suyuexi didn't understand, but seeing his smirk, she always felt that it was not a good thing. I won't waste my time with you. It's boring. When she focused on the endless soul-eating ants around her, she hugged her even tighter. Suddenly she remembered that Zhang Zizai was not as big as Qin Yi, and she was a little unconvinced. Looked down and thought, this man is really stupid. Qin Yi is just wearing revealing clothes. She may not be able to compare with me. Of course, my sister must be a lot more exaggerated. Suddenly thinking about why she had to raise such shy questions with Zhang Zizai, she suddenly felt a little confused. She felt that after meeting this man, her world was completely in chaos, and all her thoughts really came out. It's boring. You and I are talking about your totem world. I heard that in the totem world, one can get a totem at the age of 6 or 7. I got a totem when I was 15, Zhang Zizai said. Bragging, you think I'm stupid, you are at most 20 years old, and you have only been practicing for 5 years and you can do this. Suyuexi didn't believe his words for a long time. Believe it or not, I'm telling you, sooner or later, I will catch up with you, Zhang Zizai said. To be so confident, it's really a blessing to be ignorant, Suyuexi chuckled softly. What if I did it? Zhang Zizai stared into her eyes. If you can do it, I will marry you, Suyuexi blurted out suddenly, and she regretted saying it. She felt that it was equivalent to giving a promise, which was a bit impulsive. Although Zhang Zizai definitely couldn't do it, she was still a bit obedient. You have beautiful thoughts and scare me, so I'd better not catch up with you, Zhang Zizai patted his chest and said nervously. At this moment, Suyuexi's entire face turned red.